Here's a guy who thinks he can prove the afterlife.
Time has no beginning and no end.
Well, it might have a beginning. The Big Bang seems to suggest that time doesn't stretch backward infinitely, but that's somewhat debated.
That might sound a little strange, a little weird, but let's, break this down for you. First off, the only way time could ever truly end is if everything ceased to exist. Completely. Because as long as anything exists, it does so within time.
Which is why it makes no sense to say, as many apologists do, that God is timeless or outside of time.
Time isn't something separate from existence. It's part of the very fabric of reality itself. That blanket we call reality, part of the fabric. As long as there's something to exist, there's time. Now you might be thinking, what about the Big Bang? Didn't time begin then? But that assumes the Big Bang was the absolute starting point. In reality, for the Big Bang to have happened, something had to have caused it.
Because energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Well, the Big Bang was not an event at which energy was created. It was simply the earliest moment of the universe's expansion, and likely of time itself. Creating energy would mean causing a change from a state in which that energy did not exist to a state in which it does exist. There was never a state in which the energy of the universe did not exist. Even if time is finite in the past, energy has existed for all of that time, and thus was never created.
That's a simple law of physics. And for anything to happen, time had to have already existed.
Yeah, but nobody is claiming that the Big Bang happened before time existed.
You can't have events without time to allow them. So even before the Big Bang, time was still ticking.
How do you know there was any such thing as before the Big Bang?
Now you may ask, but what if there was a time when nothing truly existed, just nothing?
That would be a contradiction. There can't be a time when nothing exists, because at such a time, time itself would still exist.
Well, here's the kicker. Nothing has never existed, and it will never exist. And that's not just philosophical, that's backed by the laws of physics.
Because energy cannot be created or destroyed.
In a universe where something always exists, time must always exist too.
Yes, time always exists in the sense that there was obviously never a time when time didn't exist, but that doesn't mean that time stretched infinitely into the past.
By the way, if you want to hear more about this nothing thing, I did make a whole video on it, so I don't know, maybe you should watch that or something. I don't know, dude.
All right, what does this mean? It means our universe is a monkey. Okay, not a literal monkey, but a metaphorical one. The infinite monkey theorem describes a monkey hitting random keys on a typewriter, and that given infinite time and hitting random keys, that monkey will eventually hit the random keys in such an order that would be identical to a Shakespearean play. In fact, given infinite time, that monkey will have hit all those keys in every order possible. So let's just think about the universe for a second. The universe is in constant motion. Gravity pushes and pulls. Atoms vibrate, light moves in waves, explosions, solar flares, black holes. The universe is never still. Thus we have our monkey. So the universe is constantly hammering away at that typewriter, combining elements and quarks and atoms and blowing them apart in an infinite dance over incomprehensible amounts of time. Which means every combination of letters will eventually be written. Every combination of atoms, quarks, and elements. But let's talk about you for a second. You are a combination of those letters. You are just as valid a creation as the sun, or a planet, or one of those billions of stars that drift across the galaxy, or this big old can of root beer. You are a combination of those letters that the universe typed in the infinite chaos that time provides. And the evidence for this is the very fact that you're breathing. You're here, which means you're possible. And given enough time, every possibility is an inevitability.
I suppose that since time will continue to exist even after the heat death of the universe, quantum phenomena would eventually recreate every possible combination of matter, including every possible human body. But the vast majority of those bodies won't live very long because they will pop into existence in the middle of starless space, long after every star is burned out. That's pretty far from the common conception of an afterlife.
So, what does this have to do with the afterlife? You are possible. We know you're possible by the simple fact that you're breathing and seeing this, which means, given an incomprehensible amount of time, the universe will have hit the random keys in the order that will create you. This is an amazing concept.
Yeah, but that's pretty different from an afterlife as one is traditionally conceived.
Because after you die and the world explodes and the sun fizzles out or whatever, your body will simply go back to its most rudimentary parts, basic building blocks of the universe, atoms, etc. You'll be the letters the universe writes with again.
Yeah, but after the heat death of the universe, it's not clear that even atoms will retain their structure.
As you were before you were born, which means the universe will eventually type that random key combination that is you. It would take an absolute eternity, but you will exist again.
Again, even if we are to assume that quantum phenomena could replace your body, maybe even with all of your memories intact, your body would most often appear in a completely dark vacuum and almost immediately die.
And to you, it would seem like you had just died and woke up again.
It would seem like you just died and woke up again in the dark, cold vacuum of starless space, and you would almost instantly die again. Now, in principle, it would be possible for some kind of habitable environment to manifest around you, but that would be so much less probable that even if we assume infinite time, the vast majority of your reincarnations would be in uninhabitable, cold, dark space.
Because, think about it, do you have any recollection of the billions of years that happened before you were born? No! It'll go like this. Doo-doo-doo, walking along, boom! Struck by lightning. What's this? I'm a baby! What? No way! I've already been a baby. I can't be a baby again. Can't even believe it.
You could manifest as a baby, or you could manifest as your adult self. Regardless, the most common manifestation of your body will be a very brief and probably unpleasant emergence into the cold, dark vacuum of space well after the heat death of the entire universe.
Of course I am. This is totally normal. Because I have no recollection of my previous life. Because my brain decayed into atoms millions of years ago. Which also means that you could have lived before. Which means that you're living in an afterlife as we speak.
Well, that depends on how long time has existed. We don't know for sure that time has existed infinitely.
In fact, there's no telling how many lives you've lived before.
Given how entropy works, it's unlikely that I've lived any lives before.
Which isn't as comforting as this video was made to be, but you know what? With that, I give you life after death. The afterlife, if you're feeling saucy. You're welcome, atheists. Even your belief system has an afterlife. Yes, I'm like the...
My belief system does not entail that time stretches backward infinitely. It is likely that it stretches forward infinitely, and that leaves open the possibility of quantum weirdness resurrecting me, at least in principle, but the vast majority of my future selves will live very brief, unpleasant lives. Given that most of them will occur after the heat death of the universe, when environments which can sustain life will be vastly more rare than the recurrence of my own body.
Given infinite time, anything is possible. Even going off of what we know, which is that everything around us exists. We can speculate on an afterlife. So the question is not whether or not we'll wake again, but instead, what kind of universe will we see after trillions of years?
It would take a lot longer than trillions of years. It would take exponentially longer than that for quantum phenomena to recreate your body, and by that time you won't be able to see anything because all of the stars will have burned out. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.